Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're looking at something truly remarkable. We are going to uncover a centuries-old political masterpiece, literally a blueprint for governance that actually predates European contact in North America by hundreds of years. It's a system of government so advanced, so elegantly structured, that it eventually helped shape the modern democratic world as we know it today.
So first off, ask yourself, what is the oldest participatory democracy? When I throw that question out there, where does your mind go? You probably immediately jump to ancient Athens or maybe the Roman Republic, right? Because while we're constantly taught that the foundations of modern democratic participation were born exclusively in Europe. But what if I told you that one of the oldest, most sophisticated systems of participatory democracy and federalism in the entire world was born far across the Atlantic, long before any colonist ever set foot there?
While the real answer lies in the Great Law of Peace, known as the Kayanara-Koa in the Mohawk language. This was the founding, oral constitution of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, historically referred to as the Iroquois League of Five Nations. Conceived sometime between the 12th and 15th centuries, this thing wasn't scribbled on parchment with a feather quill. No way. Instead, it was codified into intricate wampum belts made of purple and white shell beads. And these belts, they weren't just pretty decorations. They were literal, living, legal archives and diplomatic records physically holding the complex laws of a massive, peaceful confederacy. Here is our roadmap for this explainer. First, the chaos of wars. Second, the three architects of peace. Third, the architecture of the Grand Council. Fourth, clan mothers and ecology. And finally, the inspiration for modern democracies.
Okay, Section 1. The chaos of wars, destructive war cycles.
Before they set up this great law of peace, the five founding nations, the Mohawks, the Onondagas, the Oneidas, the Cayugas, and the Senecas, were completely tearing each other apart. They were trapped in this brutal, deeply destructive cycle of clan reprisals known as mourning wars. Basically, if one clan lost a member, they would go avenge them, which sparked just endless, devastating blood feuds. And this brilliantly illustrates the radical shift they made to fix it. They didn't just sign some temporary treaty. They physically and symbolically buried their weapons of war under the roots of a massive white pine, which became known as the Tree of Peace, or Tionoratassakoa. It was a complete sweeping mutual disarmament.
Moving right along to Section 2, the three architects of peace, visionaries of unity.
You know, breaking a cycle of generational violence requires some seriously extraordinary leadership, and this constitution was championed by a trio of remarkable figures who each brought something entirely unique to the table. The origin story of this democracy rests right on the collaboration of these three people. First, you have Dekanuitha, known as the Peacemaker. He was the ultimate visionary, the one who actually conceived the spiritual and political principles of the Great Law. Second was Hiawatha, the diplomat and the master orator. What's truly amazing about Hiawatha is that he had actually lost his own family to those violent mourning wars we just talked about, yet he overcame his profound personal grief to travel from village to village, spreading the peacemaker's message of unity. And third, we have Jiagansase, the Mother of Nations. She was the very first chief to accept this grand vision of peace. And crucially, she negotiated the integration of women's political rights directly into the Constitution. Together, this powerful trio built a system that would last for centuries.
Now, for Section 3, the architecture of the Grand Council, three pillars of law.
So, now that they had peace, how did they actually govern? Well, the Kayanara-Koa was an incredibly complex oral document containing 117 distinct articles, and the whole thing rested on three inseparable pillars: peace, justice, and the power of collective reason. And right at its core was the number 50. That represented the 50 civil chiefs called the Hoyane, or Men of Good, who made up the Federal Grand Council. These 50 chiefs represented the different clans and nations, bringing absolutely everyone together under one metaphorical longhouse. When they met to deliberate, the Onondaga Nation ritually presided over the council as the firekeepers. It was a highly structured, perfectly representative federal system.
But wait, how did these 50 chiefs actually pass laws? Not by a simple vote, that's for sure. They used consensus, meaning they required unanimous agreement. The debate would circulate in a very strict order from one nation to the next until every single person agreed. So the crucial point is this. By completely eliminating the simple majority vote, the Haudenosaunee entirely avoided the tyranny of the majority, which, let's be honest, is a major flaw that modern democracies still struggle with today. In this system, 51% of the people could never pass a law that oppressed the other 49%. It's forced genuine compromise and collective reasoning.
Right. Section 4. Clan Mothers and Ecology, Women and the Future.
If you think federalism and consensus are advanced, just wait until you hear about the social and environmental mechanics baked into this ancient constitution. The Haudenosaunee operated on a strict matrilineal system. That means family lineage, property, and clan titles were all transmitted exclusively through the women. Remember those 50 male chiefs on the Grand Council? Well, they didn't just inherit their power out of nowhere, and they weren't elected by the men. They were specifically chosen by the clan mothers. These clan mothers supervised the moral integrity of the chiefs. They held the absolute ultimate constitutional power to detitle them. If a chief failed in his duties, acted selfishly, or broke the laws of peace, the women could literally strip him of his title and remove him from power on the spot. It was a brilliant system of checks and balances where men held the outward-facing political titles, but women held the ultimate foundational authority.
Now, what's absolutely mind-blowing here is how they thought about time. The Great Law of Peace contains this constitutional obligation known as the seventh generation principle. Whenever the chiefs made a major decision, they were legally required to measure its impact, not just on themselves, not just on their kids, but on the unborn descendants 7 generations into the future. We're talking roughly 150 years down the line. Environmental sustainability wasn't just some modern political talking point for them. It was the literal core of their constitutional law. Just imagine for a second the massive impact on our modern world, on our climate, on our economy, if our politicians today were constitutionally obligated to govern for the people who will be walking the earth 150 years from now.
Finally, Section 5, the inspiration for modern democracies, influencing democracies.
This whole system didn't just stay hidden in the forests of the Northeast. It spread, and it fundamentally shaped the era of the Enlightenment and the founding of the modern democratic state. In the 18th century, American founding fathers, most notably Benjamin Franklin, paid very close attention to the Haudenosaunee. Franklin actually went and attended confederated councils in Albany, observing firsthand exactly how these distinct, independent nations maintained peace and unity through a federal council. And this influence is so undeniable, so documented, that in 1988, the United States Congress officially passed a resolution formally acknowledging the historical contribution of the Iroquois Constitution to the development of the U.S. Constitution itself.
But here is the ultimate historical twist, and it's a big one. When the architects of the U.S. Constitution borrowed from the Great Law of Peace, they were highly selective. They saw the immense value of federalism, bringing multiple states together under a central council to ensure peace, and they said, yes, absolutely, we'll take that. But when they saw women holding ultimate political authority, choosing and impeaching leaders, yeah, they left that out entirely. And when they saw a legal obligation to protect the environment and plan for the 7th generation, they left that out too. They copied the structure of the Longhouse, but they completely left out half of its foundational pillars.
So I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought. As we face these massive crises today, from crazy political polarization to environmental degradation to intense debates over minority rights and executive accountability, think about the Kayan Iroquois. What would our modern world look like right now if the framers of modern democracy hadn't left those pieces out? What if they had actually fully embraced the women's political power and the 7th-generation ecological foresight built into the Great Law of Peace by Dekanawida, Hiawatha, and Jiginsase all those centuries ago? The blueprint was always there, you know? Maybe it's time we start looking at it in full. Thank you so much for joining me today on The Explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll see you next time.